The charred, mangled corpse of 6-year-old Liam was barely recognizable after Denobulan Commander Zolak's security operation had blasted half his skull off during their botched invasion of the human colony on Novus Prime. "This is a fucking disaster," Juno said, slamming his fist on the table. The hollow projector in the center of the room displayed images of the gruesome scene, streaks of red blood painting the dusty streets. Krell nodded, his eyes fixed on the revolting images. "The humans, they won't let this stand. You know how they are about their children." Juno rubbed his forehead, the weight of the situation bearing down on him. "I'm well aware. Their loyalty to their own is unmatched. They'll stop at nothing to avenge this boy." "It gets worse," Krell said, his voice low. "Remember the Omega Force?" A chill ran down Juno's spine. Of course he remembered. Every Denobulan knew the stories of the genetically engineered human super soldiers who had turned the tide of the Great War against the Zorgons centuries ago. Faster, stronger, smarter than any regular human, they were the stuff of nightmares. "They're just a legend," Juno said, trying to convince himself more than Krell. "No, they're real. And they're sleeping in Cryo, hidden away on Earth. If the humans decide to wake them up, may the gods help us all." Juno slumped in his chair, the enormity of their mistake crashing down on him. They had poked the bear, and now the bear was about to wake up its most terrifying warriors. The Galactic Empire had no idea what was coming for them. A chime emanated from Juno's wrist communicator, startling both Denobulans out of their grim reverie. Juno's eyes widened as he read the urgent message from their intelligence network. "Krell, you're not going to believe this," Juno said, his voice trembling. "Marcus James has been spotted entering the Omega facility on Earth." Krell's jaw dropped. "The Marcus James, son of Alexander James, the leader of the Omega Force during the Great War?" Juno nodded, his face ashen. "The very same. Our intel suggests he's a highly decorated soldier in the Human Alliance, with combat skills and strategic brilliance that rival his father's. But why would he be at the Omega facility? That place is a myth, a legend." Krell trailed off, realization dawning on his face. Unless it's real," Juno finished. "And that's where the cryogenically frozen super soldiers are being held." Krell shook his head in disbelief. "The humans must have discovered Commander Zolak's role in the boy's death. They're preparing to retaliate." "And what better way to do it than by reviving the Omega Force?" Juno said, his mind racing with the implications. Marcus James may be seeking to awaken the super soldiers to exact vengeance upon the Galactic Empire. Krell shuddered, remembering the stories of the devastation caused by the Omega Force during the Great War. If they succeed, if the Omega Force is brought back, the consequences could be catastrophic for us. Juno stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "We can't let that happen. Krell, mobilize our elite forces immediately. We need to be prepared for a potential confrontation with the humans. We underestimated them once, and it cost us dearly. We won't make that mistake again." Krell saluted, his face grim with determination. "Yes, sir. I'll have our best warriors ready to deploy at a moment's notice." As Krell hurried out of the room to carry out his orders, Juno turned back to the holoprojector, staring at the image of Liam's lifeless body. The weight of their actions and the looming threat of retribution hung heavy in the air. As Juno and Krell prepared to mobilize their forces, a high-priority message flashed across the holoprojector. Juno quickly opened the communiqué, his eyes widening as he read the contents. "Our spies intercepted a message from Marcus James to the Human Alliance leadership," Juno said, his voice tight with tension. "He's confirming that he's revived the first batch of Omega Force soldiers, a team of 5 elite warriors called the Alpha Squad." Krell leaned forward, his interest piqued. "Who are they?" Juno scrolled through the message, reading off the names and specialties. Marcus James himself, of course. Then there's Nate Ghost Peterson, a master sniper. Olivia Artemis Reyes, close quarters combat specialist. Jack Ripper Thorne, demolitions expert, and Sasha Raven Volkov, a highly skilled hacker and infiltrator. Krell frowned, confusion etched on his face. Only 5? I thought the Omega Force was supposed to be a massive army, not a small strike team. That's what I thought too, Juno admitted. But maybe Marcus is planning something different. Surgical strikes against key targets, rather than a full-scale invasion. Krell nodded slowly, considering the possibility. It would be a smart move. Minimize their exposure while maximizing damage. Juno shook his head, not entirely convinced. Or it could be a deception. Marcus might have already revived more soldiers than he's letting on. And have you noticed how quiet the human alliance has been since the boy's death? They could be mobilizing in secret. A heavy silence fell over the room as the 2 denobulans contemplated the implications. Krell broke the silence, his voice grave. Juno, if this escalates, we could be looking at a galaxy-wide conflict. Maybe we should consider diplomatic options before resorting to military action. Juno slammed his fist on the table, startling Krell. No, we can't show weakness, not now. If we back down, every other race in the galaxy will see us as vulnerable. The Galactic Empire must demonstrate strength in the face of this threat. Krell sighed, knowing that Juno's mind was made up. So what's our next move? Juno stood tall, his eyes hardening with resolve. We prepare for war, double the patrols along our borders, increase surveillance on human activity, and put our elite forces on high alert. If the Omega Force makes a move, we'll be ready for them. As Krell nodded his acknowledgement and turned to leave, Juno called out one last order. And Krell, make sure our people are prepared for the worst. If the humans unleash the full might of the Omega Force upon us, we're in for the fight of our lives. Juno's eyes narrowed as he read the encrypted transmission, the holographic display casting an eerie glow across his face. It's from Zolak, he said, his voice tinged with surprise and suspicion. He claims to have information about the Omega Force. Krell leaned forward, his interest piqued. Zolak? The commander responsible for the boy's death on Novus Prime? What could he possibly know about the Omega Force? He's offering to share the information in exchange for protection from the human alliance, Juno replied, his mind racing with the possibilities. He wants to meet on a neutral planet. Krell frowned, his skepticism evident. Can we trust him? This could be a trap. Juno paused, weighing the risks against the potential benefits. We have to take the chance. If Zolak has valuable intel, it could give us an edge against the humans. The 2 denobulans agreed to the meeting, and soon found themselves face-to-face with the disgraced commander on a remote, uninhabited world. Zolak, his face haggard and his eyes haunted, wasted no time in revealing his information. The Omega Force soldiers, he began, his voice trembling slightly. They're not just genetically enhanced. They have advanced cybernetic implants that grant them access to a secret network, the Omega Net. Juno and Krell exchanged a look of surprise and concern. The Omega Net? Juno asked, his curiosity piqued. Zolak nodded, his eyes darting around nervously. It's a network created by the Human Alliance. It contains vast amounts of intelligence on the Galactic Empire, including our weaknesses and vulnerabilities. Krell's eyes widened in alarm. If Marcus James and the Alpha Squad have access to this network, they could use it to plan their attacks and coordinate with other human factions, Juno finished, the gravity of the situation sinking in. Zolak, are you certain of this information? The commander nodded, his expression grim. I've seen it with my own eyes. The humans are far more advanced than we ever imagined. Juno turned to Krell, his voice urgent. We need to develop countermeasures against the Omega Net, and fast. If we don't find a way to neutralize their technological advantage, we'll be at their mercy. Krell hesitated, doubt creeping into his voice. But Juno, our knowledge of human technology is limited. Developing effective countermeasures could take months, even years. Juno slammed his fist against the wall, his frustration boiling over. We don't have that kind of time. The Alpha Squad is already on the move. We have to find a way to level the playing field, or we'll be crushed under the might of the Omega Force. As the 2 denobulans argued, A new report flashed across their communicators. Juno's eyes widened as he read the message, his face growing pale. A denobulan supply depot on the edge of human space has been attacked, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. All evidence points to the involvement of the Alpha Squad. Krell's shoulders sagged, the weight of their predicament bearing down on him. It's begun, he said, his voice heavy with dread. The humans have made their first move. Juno and Krell huddled around the holo projector, their eyes glued to the grainy footage of the attack on the supply depot. The images flickered, casting an eerie glow across their faces as they studied every detail, searching for any clue that might give them an edge against the formidable Alpha Squad. Look at the way they move, Krell muttered, his voice tinged with a mix of awe and apprehension. It's like they're in perfect sync, anticipating each other's actions without a single word spoken between them. Juno nodded, his brow furrowed in concentration. And the way they seem to know exactly where our guards are going to be almost before the guards themselves do, it's uncanny. As they watched the footage for the third time, Krell suddenly sat up straighter, his eyes widening with realization. Juno, what if the Omega Force has been equipped with psionic technology? It would explain their ability to predict our movements and coordinate their attacks so seamlessly. Juno scoffed at first, dismissing the notion as far-fetched. But as he continued to analyze the footage, the pieces began to fall into place. The Alpha Squad's movements were too precise, too coordinated to be the result of mere training and intuition. A telepathic link, Juno mused, stroking his chin thoughtfully. If they can share thoughts and strategies in real time, it would give them an incredible advantage on the battlefield. Krell nodded, his expression grim. And if they can tap into the minds of our soldiers, reading their thoughts and anticipating their actions, we'd be at a severe disadvantage. Juno stood abruptly, his eyes blazing with determination. We need to find a way to counter this technology, and fast. Krell, I want you to assemble a team of our best researchers and scientists. Scour every database, every ancient text, anything that might give us a clue on how to defend against psionic attacks. As Krell set to work, Juno pored over the archives himself, desperate for any shred of information that might turn the tide in their favor. Hours turned into days as they searched, until finally Krell burst into Juno's office, his face alight with excitement. I think I've found something, he said, his words tumbling out in a rush. An ancient denobulan legend, speaking of a powerful artifact known as the Psi Nullifier. It was said to have been created by a long-extinct race to counter the psionic abilities of their enemies. Juno leaned forward, his interest piqued. Tell me more. Krell pulled up a holographic image of the artifact, a strange crystalline device that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. According to the legend, the Psi Nullifier has the power to disrupt psionic communication and block mental attacks. If we could find it, it might give us the edge we need against the Omega Force. Juno didn't hesitate. Assemble a team, Krell, your best men. We need to find this artifact, and fast. The fate of the Galactic Empire may depend on it. As Krell hurried off to make the necessary arrangements, Juno turned back to the reports that continued to flood in from across the Empire. More attacks, more devastation, each one bearing the unmistakable mark of the Alpha Squad. The humans were growing bolder, more aggressive with each passing day, and Juno knew that time was running out. He stared at the holographic map of the galaxy, watching as the red dots representing human attacks spread like a virus across the stars. The Psi Nullifier was their last hope, a desperate gambit in a war that had already claimed countless lives. But Juno refused to give up, refused to let the Galactic Empire fall to the might of the Omega Force. We'll find a way, he whispered to himself, his voice barely audible over the hum of the ship's engines. We have to. As Juno paced the command center, his mind racing with the implications of the Psi Nullifier and the ongoing search, the doors slid open, revealing an unexpected visitor. Alexander Thompson, a human diplomat, strode into the room with an air of purpose, his crisp suit a stark contrast to the utilitarian denobulan uniforms. Commander Juno, Thompson greeted, extending his hand. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. Juno eyed the outstretched hand warily before shaking it, his grip firm. I must admit, I'm surprised to see a human diplomat here, given the current state of affairs. Thompson nodded, his expression somber. I understand your skepticism, Commander, but I assure you, I represent a faction within the Human Alliance that opposes the actions of Marcus James and the Omega Force. Juno raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Is that so? And what brings you here, Mr. Thompson? A desire for peace, Thompson replied, his voice earnest. Not all humans support the idea of retaliating against the Galactic Empire for Liam's death. We believe that violence will only lead to more suffering on both sides. Juno leaned back in his chair, studying the diplomat. And what do you propose, Mr. Thompson? An exchange of information, Thompson said, leaning forward. I'm willing to share valuable intelligence on the Omega Force's plans and weaknesses, in exchange for a guarantee of safety for my faction. Juno's eyes narrowed, his suspicions still lingering. And why should I trust you? Thompson met Juno's gaze unflinchingly. Because we both want the same thing, Commander. An end to this conflict before it escalates further. After a moment's hesitation, Juno nodded. Very well, I'm listening. Thompson began to share his knowledge, revealing that the Omega Force's psionic abilities were not infallible and had a limited range. If you could develop technology to disrupt their psionic link, he suggested, it would render them vulnerable to conventional attacks. Juno leaned forward, his interest piqued. Tell me more about their psionic technology. As Thompson delved into the details, the doors to the command center burst open once more, revealing a breathless Krell. Commander Juno, he exclaimed. We've found it. The location of the Psi Nullifier. Juno stood abruptly, his attention torn between Thompson and Krell. Where? On a remote planet, Krell replied, in a heavily guarded human installation. Juno turned to Thompson, realization dawning. I don't suppose your faction would be willing to assist us in retrieving the artifact? Thompson nodded, a slight smile playing on his lips. We can help, but on one condition. Name it, Juno said, his voice tinged with urgency. The Denobulans must agree to a ceasefire with the Human Alliance, Thompson stated, his voice firm, and open negotiations to end the conflict peacefully. Juno fell silent, the weight of the decision bearing down on him. The desire for revenge against the humans warred with the prospect of a diplomatic solution. As he looked from Krell to Thompson, the fate of the Galactic Empire hanging in the balance, Juno knew he had to choose wisely. Juno's eyes met Thompson's, a mix of resignation and hope flickering within their depths. Very well, Mr. Thompson, he said, his voice steady despite the weight of his decision. I accept your terms. The Denobulans will agree to a ceasefire and open negotiations with the Human Alliance, in exchange for your assistance in retrieving the Psi Nullifier. Thompson nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Thank you, Commander Juno. I assure you this is the right choice. He leaned forward, his expression growing serious. Now, about the Psi Nullifier. Our intelligence suggests that it's being held in a top-secret research facility on Xerxes, a remote planet near the edge of human space. Juno's eyebrows rose, surprised by the revelation. Xerxes? I've never heard of it. Few have, Thompson replied, pulling out a small data chip and inserting it into the holoprojector. A detailed schematic of the facility materialized before them, its intricate layout rotating slowly. It's a highly classified location, known only to a select few within the Human Alliance. Krell studied the hologram, his eyes narrowing as he took in the facility's defenses. It won't be easy to infiltrate, he mused, glancing at Juno. We'll need our best operatives for this mission. Thompson nodded in agreement. Indeed. But with the schematics and intel I've provided, I believe a small, elite team of Denobulan agents could slip in undetected and retrieve the artifact. Juno turned to Thompson, curiosity etched on his face. I must ask, Mr. Thompson, why are you so willing to help us? What do you stand to gain from this arrangement? Thompson's eyes grew distant, a flicker of pain crossing his features. I lost my own child years ago. A tragic accident. He paused, taking a deep breath before continuing. I understand the anger and pain that the human alliance feels over Liam's death, but I also know that violence and revenge will only lead to more suffering, more loss. Krell, moved by Thompson's words, spoke up. Perhaps we denobulans have much to learn from human compassion and resilience, he said softly, his gaze meeting Thompson's. Despite your warlike nature, you've shown a remarkable capacity for kindness and self-sacrifice. Juno, still grappling with his own doubts, nodded slowly. Very well. I will assemble a team for the Xerxes mission. We'll need our best infiltration specialists and... The commander's words were cut short as an urgent message flashed across the holoprojector. Juno's eyes widened as he read the report, his face growing grim. The Alpha Squad, he said, his voice tight with tension. They've attacked one of our military installations, stealing a cache of advanced weapons and technology. Krell's jaw clenched, his hands balling into fists at his sides. They grow bolder with each passing day, he growled, his eyes flashing with anger. Juno turned to Thompson, his expression hardening with resolve. We must act quickly, he said, his voice firm. The Psi Nullifier may be our only hope of stopping the Omega Force before more lives are lost on both sides. As the three men began to plan the details of the Xerxes mission, Juno couldn't shake the feeling that they were embarking on a desperate gamble, one that could either save the galaxy from the brink of war or plunge it into an even deeper cycle of violence and retribution. Zarn and his team moved silently through the shadowy corridors of the research facility on Xerxes, their footsteps barely audible against the hum of distant machinery. As they approached the central lab, Zarn's eyes widened at the sight before him. Through the reinforced glass, he could see the Psi Nullifier, its crystalline structure pulsing with an otherworldly energy. But what truly caught his attention were the human scientists bustling around the artifact, their faces etched with concentration as they worked to unravel its secrets. Juno, you won't believe this, Zarn whispered into his comlink. The humans, they've been studying the Psi Nullifier, trying to understand its technology. The progress they've made in such a short time, it's incredible. Juno's voice crackled through the link, a mix of surprise and intrigue. What exactly have they accomplished, Zarn? Zarn watched as a human scientist manipulated a holographic display, the schematic of the Psi Nullifier rotating and zooming in on specific components. They've managed to map out the device's internal structure, isolating the key elements that give it its psionic disruption capabilities. It's like they've dissected it, piece by piece, and are now on the verge of replicating its technology. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the link before Juno spoke again. Their scientific prowess is truly remarkable. To have come so far in understanding a technology that is entirely foreign to them. It's a testament to their adaptability and ingenuity. Zarn nodded, a newfound respect for the humans growing within him. Indeed, Juno. I can't help but feel that we denobulans have underestimated them. There is much we could learn from their tenacity and innovative spirit. Perhaps you're right, Zarn, Juno replied, his tone contemplative. But for now, stay focused on the mission, secure the Psi Nullifier, and extract as planned. Zarn signaled to his team, and they began to move towards the lab entrance. But as they approached, the doors slid open, revealing a group of human soldiers, their weapons trained on the denobulan operatives. Zarn tensed, preparing for a fight, but to his surprise, the soldiers lowered their weapons, their leader stepping forward with her hands raised in a gesture of peace. I am Captain Elena Satori, the woman said, her voice calm and measured. My team and I have been tasked with guarding the Psi Nullifier, but we have no wish to engage in violence. Zarn, still wary, kept his own weapon at the ready. Then what do you want, Captain Satori? Satori took a deep breath, her eyes meeting Zarn's with a steady gaze. We've grown disillusioned with the actions of the human alliance. This war against your people, it's unjust, and we want to help end it peacefully. Zarn's brow furrowed, unsure of how to respond. Satori continued, her words measured and sincere. I'm offering to hand over the Psi Nullifier to you on one condition, that you use it only for defensive purposes and continue to pursue diplomatic solutions to this conflict. Zarn hesitated, the weight of Satori's offer sinking in. He activated his comm link once more, his voice urgent. Juno, are you hearing this? Captain Satori is willing to give us the Psi Nullifier, but she has terms. There was a pause on the other end of the link, and Zarn could almost hear the gears turning in Juno's mind. Finally, the commander spoke, his voice filled with a mix of caution and hope. Zarn, this could be an opportunity to build trust with a faction of humans who share our desire for peace. Agree to Satori's terms and secure the Psi Nullifier. Zarn nodded, turning back to Satori. Very well, Captain. We accept your offer and your conditions. The Denobulans will use the Psi Nullifier only to protect ourselves, and will continue to seek a diplomatic resolution to this war. Satori smiled, a glimmer of relief in her eyes. She signaled to her team, who stepped aside, allowing the Denobulans access to the lab. As Zarn and his operatives began to secure the Psi Nullifier, preparing it for transport, an urgent message came through on their comm links. Commander Juno, Zarn, a frantic voice crackled through the static. We've just received word that the Alpha Squad has launched a massive attack on the Denobulan homeworld. They're targeting our key government and military installations. We need the Psi Nullifier and any support you can gather now. Juno's voice cut through the chaos, his tone grave. Zarn, you must extract immediately with the Psi Nullifier. Captain Satori, I know I have no right to ask this of you, but we need your help. The fate of the Denobulan civilization hangs in the balance. Satori locked eyes with Zarn, a fierce determination burning within them. Commander Juno, my team and I will stand with you against the Omega Force. If we're to have any hope of ending this war and fostering peace between our peoples, we must act together. As Zarn and his team raced to their extraction point, the Psi Nullifier secured and Captain Satori's soldiers at their side, they knew that the battle ahead would be their greatest challenge yet. But with the power of the ancient artifact and the support of their unlikely human allies, they dared to hope that they could stop the Alpha Squad before it was too late. As Zarn's team raced through the stars, the Psi Nullifier securely in their possession, an urgent transmission cut through the tense silence on the bridge. Juno's eyes widened as he recognized the face on the screen. Marcus James himself, the leader of the dreaded Omega Force. Commander Juno, James said, his voice calm but firm. I come to you not as an enemy, but as someone seeking to end this conflict before more lives are lost. Juno leaned forward, his brow furrowed in surprise. You attack our homeworld, and now you claim to want peace? James held up a hand, his expression sincere. The attack on your homeworld is not meant to cause mass casualties. It's a message, a way to force your people to acknowledge the consequences of their actions and agree to a treaty that ensures justice for Liam and the other human victims of Denobulan aggression. Krell, who had been listening intently, spoke up. But why contact Juno directly? What makes you think he'll listen to you? A faint smile played on James's lips. I've been monitoring Juno's actions, and I've come to respect his dedication to finding a peaceful solution. Our psionic abilities have allowed us to read the thoughts and intentions of your people, and we've discovered that not all Denobulans support this war. Juno leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. You believe I represent a faction that genuinely wants peace? James nodded. I do, and I'm willing to work with you to achieve that goal. We have no desire to exterminate your people, Juno. We only want to ensure that the wrongs committed against us are made right. Krell shook his head in amazement. Your psionic abilities could have easily been used to manipulate and control us, yet you choose to seek understanding and common ground. It's remarkable. James's expression softened. We've all suffered in this conflict, Krell. The Omega Force knows the pain of loss all too well, but we also know that the path to healing begins with compassion and forgiveness. Juno, realizing the magnitude of the opportunity before him, made a decision. I propose a meeting, James, in person, on neutral ground. We each bring a limited number of representatives to ensure a fair and balanced negotiation. James smiled, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. I accept your proposal, Juno. Let us work together to forge a lasting peace between our peoples. As the transmission ended, Juno and Krell exchanged a look of cautious optimism. The Omega Force, for all their incredible abilities, had shown a surprising capacity for empathy and understanding. Perhaps, with the help of the Psi Nullifier and the willingness to listen on both sides, they could finally put an end to the bloodshed and begin the long process of healing. As Juno and his team prepared for the crucial meeting with Marcus James, a sense of urgency filled the air. The fate of both the Denobulans and the humans hung in the balance, and every move they made could tip the scales in either direction. Krell burst into the room, his eyes wide with excitement. Juno, you need to see this, he said, handing over a data pad. Our intelligence team just uncovered something that could change everything. Juno scanned the report, his brow furrowing as he read. Dr. Eliza Novak? Liam's mother? He muttered, the pieces of the puzzle slowly falling into place. Yes, Krell confirmed, his voice filled with a mix of awe and disbelief. It turns out that Liam wasn't just an ordinary child. His mother is a brilliant human scientist who was working on a groundbreaking medical technology that could revolutionize the treatment of genetic disorders. Juno leaned back in his chair, his mind racing with the implications. And she was collaborating with our researchers on the project? Krell nodded. Until Liam was killed. After that, she cut all ties with us and vanished. This changes everything, Juno said, his voice barely above a whisper. The Omega Force's actions, their determination to bring us to the negotiating table. What if it's not just about revenge? You're thinking they want to protect Dr. Novak and her research, Krell said, catching on to Juno's train of thought. Exactly, Juno confirmed. The Human Alliance may have revived the Omega Force not only to retaliate against us, but also to secure this technology for themselves. Krell's eyes widened as he considered the possibilities. If they succeed, it could give them an incredible advantage, not just in medical science, but in countless other fields as well. Juno nodded, his expression grim. We need to act fast. If we can find Dr. Novak and secure her research, it could give us the leverage we need in our negotiations with James. He reached for his communicator, his fingers flying over the keys as he composed a message. I'm contacting Alexander Thompson. He's been a valuable ally so far, and he might have some insight into the situation. Moments later, Thompson's face appeared on the screen, his expression curious. Commander Juno, what can I do for you? Juno wasted no time in explaining their discovery, watching as Thompson's eyes widened with each new piece of information. You're right, Thompson said, his voice heavy with concern. Dr. Novak's research is a closely guarded secret within the Human Alliance. There are factions that would stop at nothing to obtain it. Juno leaned forward, his eyes locked on Thompson's. We need your help. If we can locate Dr. Novak and secure her research, we could use it as a bargaining chip in our negotiations with James. We'll offer to help protect her and her work in exchange for a comprehensive peace treaty. Thompson hesitated, his brow furrowing as he considered the proposal. It's a risky move, Juno. Some might see it as blackmail. I know, Juno admitted, his voice heavy with the weight of his decision. But we have few other options. If we don't find a way to end this conflict soon, the consequences could be catastrophic for both our peoples. Thompson sighed, his shoulders sagging with the burden of responsibility. You're right. I'll do what I can to help you locate Dr. Novak. But be careful, Juno. You're treading on dangerous ground. As the transmission ended, Juno turned to his team, his eyes blazing with determination. We have our work cut out for us, he said, his voice filled with a mix of apprehension and resolve. But we can't let this opportunity slip through our fingers. The fate of our people and perhaps the entire galaxy depends on what we do next. Krell nodded, his expression mirroring Juno's. We'll find her, Juno. And when we do, we'll make sure that her research is used for the betterment of all, not just as a weapon in this war. As they prepared for the meeting with James, Juno couldn't help but reflect on the incredible lengths to which the humans were willing to go to protect one of their own. Despite the tragedy and conflict that had brought them to this point, he couldn't deny the admiration he felt for their loyalty and determination. "They'll never cease to amaze me," Krell said softly, echoing Juno's thoughts. "The depth of their love for one another, their willingness to risk everything for the sake of their people." Juno nodded, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "It's a quality we could all learn from," he said, his voice filled with a newfound respect for the humans they had once considered their enemies. "Perhaps, in the end, it will be the key to bridging the gap between our two races and forging a lasting peace that will endure for generations to come." As Juno and his team stepped into the meeting room, their eyes widened in surprise. Standing beside Marcus James was a woman in a white lab coat, her auburn hair pulled back into a neat bun. James gestured to her, a hint of pride in his voice. "Commander Juno, allow me to introduce Dr. Eliza Novak." Juno's brow furrowed as he processed the revelation. "Dr. Novak, I must admit I didn't expect to see you here." Dr. Novak offered a small smile. "I understand your confusion, Commander. After my son's death, I feared that the Human Alliance would try to use my research for their own gain, twisting it into something terrible." James nodded, his expression solemn. "The Omega Force has been working to protect Dr. Novak and ensure that her technology is used to benefit all of humanity, not just a select few." Juno, still reeling from the surprise, turned to Dr. Novak. "But why trust the Omega Force, a group of super soldiers, over your own government?" Dr. Novak's eyes softened, a flicker of pain passing across her features. "The Omega Force, despite their reputation, showed me a level of compassion and understanding that I hadn't found anywhere else. They shared their own stories of loss and trauma with me and helped me see that my research could do more than just heal physical wounds. It could help bridge the gap between our species." Krell leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. "Dr. Novak, could you tell us more about the potential applications of your technology?" Dr. Novak's face lit up, her passion for her work shining through. "My research focuses on using targeted gene therapy to treat a wide range of genetic disorders, from inherited diseases to cancer. But more than that, I believe it could help create a shared sense of purpose and unity among different species." Juno, seeing an opportunity, cleared his throat. "Dr. Novak, what if we were to share our research on the Psi Nullifier with you? In exchange, perhaps you could help us develop a joint human denobulin initiative to advance medical science." James, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth, nodded in approval. "I think that's an excellent idea, Commander. We could use this as a foundation for a permanent peace treaty, one that includes provisions for scientific collaboration and cultural exchange." As the meeting drew to a close, Juno and Krell couldn't help but marvel at the resilience and adaptability of the human spirit, embodied by Dr. Novak and the Omega Force. In the face of unimaginable tragedy, they had found a way to build bridges and find common ground, offering a glimmer of hope for a brighter future. Juno turned to Krell as they exited the meeting room, his voice low. "I never thought I'd see the day when we'd be working hand in hand with the Omega Force." Krell chuckled, shaking his head in disbelief. "Nor did I. But perhaps this is the beginning of a new era, one where our differences are set aside in the pursuit of a greater good." Juno nodded, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "I hope you're right, Krell, for all our sakes." As the two denobulins returned to their ship, the weight of the memorial service hung heavy in the air. Juno, his eyes distant and thoughtful, turned to Krell. "I never thought I'd see the day when our two peoples would come together like this, united in grief and hope." Krell nodded, his voice soft with reverence. "The humans, they have a way of finding light in even the darkest of moments. That garden, the way they honored both human and denobulin traditions, it was a powerful symbol of unity." "And the Zarika tree," Juno mused, his fingers brushing against the small sapling the children had given him. "To think that they would include such an important part of our culture in their mourning rituals. It speaks volumes about their capacity for empathy and understanding." Krell's eyes shone with admiration as he recalled the ceremony. Captain Satori's words, too, about forgiveness and compassion. She's a true leader, someone who can bridge the gap between our species and guide us toward a better future. Juno leaned back in his seat, a faint smile playing on his lips. I never thought I'd say this, but I believe the humans may be the key to lasting peace in the galaxy. Their resilience, their ability to find common ground even with those they once considered enemies. It's remarkable. Agreed, Krell said, his tone thoughtful. And to think, it all started with the tragic loss of a single child. Liam's death, as heartbreaking as it was, may have been the catalyst for a new era of understanding and cooperation between humans and denobulans. Juno's eyes drifted to the viewport, taking in the expanse of stars stretching out before them. I only hope that we can honor his memory by working tirelessly to maintain this newfound peace. We owe it to him and to all the lives lost in this senseless conflict to build a better future for everyone. As the ship prepared to depart Earth, Juno clutched the Zarika sapling close to his chest, a symbol of the incredible resilience and compassion of the human spirit, and a reminder of the long road ahead. He knew that the journey towards lasting peace would not be easy, but with the support of allies like Captain Satori and the unwavering determination of both humans and denobulans, he believed that anything was possible. As the denobulan ship touched down on the sun-baked landing pad, Juno and Krell stepped out into the familiar heat of their homeworld. The weight of the Zarika sapling in Juno's hands served as a constant reminder of the incredible journey they had just undertaken and the profound lessons they had learned about the human spirit. As they made their way through the bustling streets of the capital city, a message pinged on Juno's communicator. The High Council requests your immediate presence, the text read, the urgency of the summons clear in the concise wording. Juno and Krell exchanged a glance, their eyebrows raised in surprise. They must have heard about the peace treaty, Krell mused, his voice tinged with a mix of excitement and apprehension. And the joint initiative with Dr. Novak, Juno added, his mind already racing with the possibilities. This could be a turning point for our people, Krell. A chance to forge a new path forward, one based on understanding and cooperation rather than fear and mistrust. As they entered the grand chamber of the High Council, Juno and Krell were greeted by a sea of curious faces, the council members leaning forward in their seats, eager to hear the details of their mission. Commander Juno, Lieutenant Krell, the High Counselor began, her voice ringing out clear and strong in the cavernous room. We have received reports of a peace treaty between our people and the humans, as well as whispers of a groundbreaking scientific collaboration. We are eager to hear the full story from you. Juno stepped forward, his posture straight and his voice steady, as he began to recount the events that had transpired on Earth. High Counselors, what started as a tragedy, the death of a human child named Liam, turned into an opportunity for growth and understanding between our two species. He spoke of the revival of the Omega Force, the human super soldiers who had once been the stuff of denobulan nightmares, and how they had chosen the path of peace over revenge. He described Dr. Eliza Novak's incredible research into genetic therapies and how it could revolutionize medicine across the galaxy. As he spoke, Juno could see the faces of the council members shifting from skepticism to surprise to genuine admiration. The humans, he continued, his voice filled with a newfound respect, showed us that even in the face of unimaginable grief, it is possible to find common ground and work towards a better future for all. Krell, sensing the impact of Juno's words, stepped forward to offer his own perspective. High Counselors, he began, his voice filled with conviction, I believe that we denobulans have much to learn from human culture and values. He described the memorial service for Liam, how the humans had incorporated denobulan traditions into their own mourning rituals, and how the children's gift of the Zarika sapling represented a shared hope for the future. I propose, Krell continued, his eyes shining with excitement, that we establish a cultural exchange program with the humans. By fostering greater understanding and cooperation between our two species, we can begin to break down the barriers of fear and mistrust that have divided us for so long. The High Counselors exchanged glances, their expressions thoughtful as they considered Krell's proposal. "Your words have given us much to consider," the High Counselor said at last, her voice filled with a new sense of purpose. "Commander Juno, Lieutenant Krell, we invite you to work with a team of our finest diplomats and scholars to develop a comprehensive plan for this cultural exchange program." As the meeting drew to a close, Juno found himself reflecting on the incredible journey that he and Krell had undertaken. In just a short span of time, their perception of humanity and their own place in the galaxy had been fundamentally transformed. He realized that despite their many differences, humans and denobulans shared a common desire for peace, understanding, and a better future for all sentient beings. And with the help of visionaries like Dr. Novak and the brave soldiers of the Omega Force, that future suddenly seemed within reach. As Juno and Krell left the council chamber, the Zerika sapling nestled securely in Juno's arms. They knew that the real work was just beginning. But they also knew that they had taken the first steps on a path towards a brighter tomorrow. A tomorrow in which humans and denobulans would stand together as allies and friends, united in their common purpose of making the galaxy a better place for all. As Juno and Krell worked diligently with the denobulan diplomats to iron out the details of the cultural exchange program, the doors to the council chamber slid open, revealing an unexpected sight. Marcus James, the formidable leader of the Omega Force, strode into the room, accompanied by none other than Dr. Eliza Novak herself. Juno rose to his feet, his eyes widening in surprise. "Marcus James, Dr. Novak, this is an unexpected pleasure," he said, extending his hand in greeting. "What brings you to the denobulan homeworld?" James grasped Juno's hand firmly, his expression solemn yet hopeful. "Commander Juno, we come bearing a message from the Human Alliance. May we join your meeting?" Juno nodded, gesturing for James and Dr. Novak to take a seat at the table. "Of course, please." As the two humans settled in, James cleared his throat, his voice carrying a weight of sincerity. "On behalf of the Human Alliance, I want to express our deepest gratitude for your willingness to work towards peace and understanding between our peoples. The path we've walked has been marred by pain and suffering on both sides, but it's time we look to the future and build something better, together." Dr. Novak leaned forward, her eyes sparkling with passion. "Commander Juno, Lieutenant Krell, I have a vision for a galaxy-wide medical research initiative that could change the lives of countless beings. Imagine the brightest minds from every species coming together to tackle the most pressing health challenges we face. I invite the denobulans to join us in this endeavor, to share your knowledge and expertise in the pursuit of a common goal." Krell, his interest piqued, spoke up. "Dr. Novak, your vision is inspiring. The denobulans have long been at the forefront of regenerative medicine, and I believe our unique perspective could be invaluable in developing new treatments for a wide range of conditions." James, seizing the opportunity, interjected, "Why not make this medical research initiative a key component of the cultural exchange program? Human and denobulan scientists could work side by side, advancing our understanding of medicine and developing cutting-edge technologies. The Human Alliance is prepared to provide funding and resources to support this collaboration, as a sign of our commitment to the peace process." Juno, his mind racing with the possibilities, nodded enthusiastically. "This is a remarkable proposal, Marcus James. I will work closely with the Denobulan High Council to secure their support and identify our finest scientists to participate in this groundbreaking program." As the meeting drew to a close, Juno and Krell exchanged a look of wonder, marveling at the incredible progress they had made since the tragic loss of Liam. The resilience, compassion, and innovative spirit demonstrated by the humans had ignited a spark of hope within them, a belief that together they could forge a better future for all sentient beings. Juno, his voice filled with determination, addressed the room. "Let this be the beginning of a new era of cooperation and understanding between our peoples. Through our shared pursuit of knowledge and healing, we will honor the memory of those we've lost and build a legacy of peace that will endure for generations to come." As the cultural exchange program between the denobulans and humans gained momentum, Juno and Krell found themselves increasingly intrigued by the Omega Force and their unique approach to training and mental conditioning. When an invitation arrived from Marcus James himself, offering a personal tour of the Omega Force's training facility on Earth, the two Denobulans jumped at the opportunity. Upon arriving at the remote facility, Juno and Krell were greeted by the familiar face of Captain Elena Satori, who had been appointed as the liaison between the Omega Force and the Denobulan delegation. Satori, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm, shook their hands warmly. "Commander Juno, Lieutenant Krell, it's an honor to have you here. Marcus is eager to show you the incredible work we're doing with our soldiers." As Satori guided them through the sprawling complex, Juno and Krell couldn't help but marvel at the state-of-the-art training equipment and the sheer dedication of the Omega Force soldiers. In one area, a group of recruits navigated a complex obstacle course, leaping over barriers and scaling walls with superhuman agility. In another, pairs of soldiers engaged in intense hand-to-hand combat drills, their movements a blur of precision and power. "The training program here is designed to push our soldiers to their absolute limits," Satori explained, her voice filled with pride. "We want them to be prepared for anything they might face out there, whether it's physical challenges or mental stress." Krell, his eyes wide with fascination, turned to Satori. "I'm curious about the psychological conditioning your soldiers undergo. How do you help them cope with the trauma and stress of combat?" Satori smiled, nodding in understanding. "We employ a variety of techniques, from meditation and visualization to exposure therapy. The goal is to help our soldiers develop a deep sense of mental resilience and emotional control." She went on to describe how these techniques had been instrumental in helping Omega Force soldiers maintain their humanity and compassion, even in the face of unimaginable horrors. "We don't want our soldiers to become machines," she said, her voice soft but firm. "We want them to hold on to their empathy, their ability to connect with others." Juno, impressed by the Omega Force's holistic approach to soldier well-being, spoke up. "Captain Satori, I believe the Denobulans could learn a great deal from your methods. Perhaps we could incorporate a mental health component into our cultural exchange program, with our professionals working alongside yours to develop new therapies and support systems." Satori's face lit up at the suggestion. "That would be incredible, Commander Juno. By sharing our knowledge and expertise, we could make a real difference in the lives of soldiers and veterans across the galaxy." As the tour drew to a close, Juno and Krell found themselves filled with a profound sense of respect for the Omega Force soldiers. These men and women, despite their fearsome reputation, were not just warriors, but also deeply compassionate and resilient individuals who had dedicated their lives to protecting others and building a better future. Krell, his voice filled with admiration, turned to Juno. "To think, these are the same soldiers who once struck fear into the hearts of our people. But now, seeing them like this, I realize that they are so much more than just their combat abilities." Juno nodded, his eyes distant and thoughtful. "They are a testament to the incredible potential of the human spirit, Krell. Their dedication, their compassion, their willingness to put the needs of others before their own. It's truly inspiring." As they prepared to depart the facility, Juno and Krell knew that their visit had been more than just a tour. It had been a glimpse into the heart and soul of the Omega Force, a reminder of the shared values that bound their two species together. And with that knowledge, they set forth, ready to continue their work towards a brighter, more hopeful future for all. As the Denobulan ship touched down on the sun-baked landing pad, Juno and Krell stepped out into the familiar heat of their homeworld. The weight of the Zarika sapling in Juno's hands served as a constant reminder of the incredible journey they had just undertaken and the profound lessons they had learned about the human spirit. As they made their way through the bustling streets of the capital city, a group of Denobulan scholars approached them, their eyes alight with curiosity. The leader of the group, a renowned anthropologist named Zaxir, stepped forward, his voice filled with excitement. "Commander Juno, Lieutenant Krell, we have been following your work with the humans closely. Your experiences have opened up new avenues of research and understanding for us." Juno, intrigued by Zaxir's words, tilted his head. "How so, Professor Zaxir?" "We have been studying human history and culture, trying to unravel the secrets of their resilience and adaptability. We believe that there is much we can learn from them, and we would be honored if you would share your insights with us. Krell, his interest piqued, leaned forward. What did you have in mind, Professor? Zaxir's face lit up with enthusiasm. We are organizing a symposium on the topic of human resilience and adaptability, and we would like to invite you both to participate. Your first-hand experiences with the humans would be invaluable to our understanding. Juno, seeing an opportunity to further the cause of peace and understanding between their two species, nodded in agreement. We would be honored to participate, Professor. When is the symposium? In 3 days' time, at the Grand Hall of Knowledge, Zaxir replied, his voice filled with pride. We have invited scholars from across the Denobulan homeworld to attend, and we believe that your insights will spark a new era of research and collaboration. As the symposium began, the Grand Hall of Knowledge was filled to capacity with Denobulan scholars, students, and dignitaries, all eager to hear from Juno and Krell. Zaxir took the stage first, his voice ringing out clear and strong across the auditorium. Throughout their history, humans have demonstrated a remarkable ability to come together in times of crisis, he began, his eyes scanning the crowd. They have shown time and again that they can put aside their differences and work towards a common goal, whether it be in response to natural disasters, in the pursuit of scientific discovery, or in the name of peace. He went on to cite examples of human cooperation and resilience, from the global response to pandemics to the international cooperation in space exploration. And most recently, he added, his voice filled with admiration, we have seen the power of human compassion and understanding in the peace treaty between the Human Alliance and our own people. As Zaxir concluded his presentation, the auditorium erupted in applause. Krell, taking the stage next, shared his own experiences working with human researchers in the Joint Medical Initiative. The human scientists brought a fresh perspective to our work, he said, his voice filled with enthusiasm. Their creativity and willingness to take risks has led to breakthroughs that we never could have achieved on our own. He described how the human researchers had developed innovative solutions to complex problems, often approaching challenges from angles that the Denobulan scientists had never considered. Their outside-the-box thinking has been a key factor in the success of our initiative, he added, his eyes shining with pride. Juno, taking the stage last, shared his personal journey of understanding and appreciation for the human spirit. He spoke of his initial skepticism and mistrust of humans, and how his experiences with the Omega Force and Dr. Eliza Novak had challenged his preconceptions. I saw firsthand the incredible resilience and compassion of the human spirit, he said, his voice filled with emotion. Even in the face of unimaginable loss and adversity, they never lost their humanity, their ability to connect with others and work towards a better future. As the symposium drew to a close, Juno and Krell were approached by a group of Denobulan students, their faces filled with awe and admiration. The students expressed their desire to learn more about human culture and to participate in the cultural exchange program. Juno, touched by their enthusiasm, smiled warmly. I would be honored to mentor you, he said, his voice filled with sincerity. Together, we can learn to navigate the challenges and opportunities of cross-cultural collaboration and build a better future for both our species. Krell, watching the exchange, felt a swell of hope and optimism for the future. He realized that by working together and learning from each other, humans and Denobulans had the potential to achieve great things, to push the boundaries of what was possible and create a brighter tomorrow for all sentient beings. The road ahead would not be easy, but with the resilience and compassion of the human spirit as their guide, anything was possible. As the cultural exchange program blossomed, Juno and Krell found themselves once again marveling at the depths of human resilience and compassion. An invitation arrived, requesting their presence at a ceremony honoring the fallen Omega Force soldiers who had given their lives in the line of duty, including those lost during the conflict with the Denobulans. Moved by the gesture, Juno and Krell traveled to Earth, where they found themselves seated among the families and comrades of the fallen at the Omega Force headquarters. As Marcus James took the stage, his voice heavy with emotion, He began to speak of the bravery and sacrifice of his fallen brothers and sisters in arms. Each of these soldiers, James said, his gaze sweeping over the assembled crowd, was more than just a warrior. They were friends, mentors, and family. They each brought something unique and irreplaceable to the Omega Force. He began to share stories of each fallen soldier, painting a vivid picture of their lives and contributions. There was Lieutenant Sarah Hawkins, a brilliant tactician whose innovative strategies had saved countless lives. Sergeant Michael Chen, whose unwavering loyalty and quick wit had made him a beloved figure among his comrades. And Private Alicia Rodriguez, whose compassion and dedication to protecting the innocent had earned her the respect and admiration of all who knew her. As James spoke, Juno and Krell watched as the families of the fallen comforted each other, their tears mingling with laughter as they shared cherished memories of their loved ones. The Omega Force soldiers, past and present, stood together in solidarity, their shared experiences and sacrifices forging an unbreakable bond. Krell leaned over to Juno, his voice barely above a whisper. "You know, I never thought I would say this, but I think we could learn a lot from these humans. The way they support each other, the way they honor their fallen. It's really quite remarkable." Juno nodded, his eyes never leaving the stage. "I know what you mean. I used to think of humans as just another species, but now I see them as something more. They have a strength and a spirit that is truly incredible." As the ceremony drew to a close, Dr. Eliza Novak approached Juno and Krell, her face alight with excitement. "I have some wonderful news," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "The Joint Research Team has made a major breakthrough. We're one step closer to developing a cure for a genetic disorder that was once thought to be incurable." Novak went on to explain how the collaboration between human and denobulan scientists had been instrumental in the discovery. "It was the unique perspectives and skills of both teams that made this possible," she said, her eyes shining with pride. "Together, we were able to approach the problem from angles that neither group would have considered on their own." Juno and Krell, thrilled by the news, offered their heartfelt congratulations to Novak and the research team. As they stood there, surrounded by the warmth and resilience of the human spirit, they couldn't help but feel a sense of hope for the future. "Just imagine," Krell said softly, "what we could achieve if we continue to work together like this. The possibilities are endless." Juno nodded, his gaze drifting over the crowd of humans and denobulans alike. "We have so much to learn from each other," he murmured. "And so much good we can do in this galaxy, if only we have the courage to try." As the Zarika sapling took root in the soil of the denobulan homeworld, Juno and Krell found themselves marveling at the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. The tiny tree, a symbol of the resilience and compassion of the human spirit, seemed to embody the profound changes that had taken place in the relationship between their two species. Juno turned to Krell, his eyes alight with wonder. "Can you believe it, old friend? Just a short while ago, we were locked in a bitter conflict with the humans, consumed by mistrust and prejudice. And now, here we are, planting a tree that represents the bond between our peoples." Krell nodded, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "It's incredible, isn't it? To think that the death of a single human child could have set in motion such a remarkable chain of events. The way the humans responded, with compassion and understanding, rather than hatred and vengeance, it's a testament to their character." "And the Omega Force," Juno added, his voice filled with admiration. "Who would have thought that a group of super soldiers, once the stuff of our nightmares, would become our closest allies in the pursuit of peace?" As they stood there reflecting on the incredible journey that had brought them to this point, a message pinged on Juno's communicator. It was an invitation to speak at a conference on interspecies cooperation and diplomacy, to be held on a neutral space station. Juno's eyes widened as he read the message. "Krell, look at this. They want us to share our story with delegates from across the galaxy, representatives from the Human Alliance, the Denobulan Empire, and countless other species will be there." Krell leaned in, his own excitement growing. "This is an incredible opportunity, Juno. To think that our experience, our journey, could serve as an example for others to follow. It's humbling. As they boarded their ship and set course for the space station, Juno and Krell spent hours preparing for their presentation. They pored over the details of their story, from the initial hostility and mistrust between their species to the gradual process of building understanding and cooperation. "Remember the cultural exchange program?" Krell asked, his eyes distant with memory. "How nervous we were, sending our first delegation to Earth. And yet, the way the humans welcomed us, the way they opened their hearts and minds to us, it was a turning point." Juno nodded, a smile playing on his lips. "And the Joint Medical Research Initiative. The way our scientists worked side by side with human researchers, combining our knowledge and expertise to achieve something truly remarkable. It's a testament to the power of collaboration." As they took the stage at the conference, Juno and Krell looked out at the sea of faces before them. Representatives from countless species, each with their own unique history and perspective, all gathered together in the spirit of cooperation and understanding. Juno began to speak, his voice filled with emotion. "My fellow sentient beings, we come before you today to share a story of tragedy and triumph, of hatred and compassion, of the incredible resilience and adaptability of the human spirit." He spoke of the initial mistrust and hostility between humans and denobulans, and how the actions of the Omega Force had forced them to confront their own prejudices and assumptions. He described the gradual process of building trust and understanding through the Cultural Exchange Program, the Joint Medical Research Initiative, and the personal relationships they had formed with humans like Marcus James and Dr. Eliza Novak. Krell, taking the stage, spoke from the heart. "I must admit, there was a time when I viewed humans as inferior and barbaric. I believed that they were a species driven by aggression and violence, incapable of reason or compassion. But my experiences have shown me the error of my ways." He spoke of the incredible resilience and adaptability of the human spirit, of their capacity for empathy and understanding even in the face of great adversity. "The humans have shown me that our differences, rather than dividing us, can be a source of strength and inspiration, that by learning from each other, by embracing our diversity, we can achieve great things." Juno, building on Krell's words, emphasized the importance of interspecies cooperation and diplomacy. In a galaxy filled with countless forms of life, each with their own unique qualities and perspectives, it is essential that we work together to build a better future for all. The Joint Medical Research Initiative, which has led to a breakthrough that could benefit individuals across the galaxy, is a shining example of what we can achieve when we put aside our differences and work towards a common goal. As the presentation concluded, Juno and Krell were approached by a delegation from a species they had never encountered before. The delegates, their faces alight with admiration, expressed their desire to learn from the example set by the humans and denobulans. "Your story is an inspiration to us all," the leader of the delegation said, her voice filled with emotion. "We too have struggled with conflict and mistrust between our people and others, but seeing what you have achieved, the way you have built bridges and forged bonds of friendship and cooperation, it gives us hope." Juno and Krell, humbled by the delegates' words, graciously accepted their invitation to visit their homeworld and share their insights with their leaders and people. As they stepped off the stage, they couldn't help but marvel at the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. "To think," Krell said softly, "that a story which began with such tragedy could become a symbol of hope and possibility for the entire galaxy. It's truly remarkable." Juno nodded, his eyes shining with pride and determination. "And it's just the beginning, old friend. With the help of our human allies and the countless other species who share our vision of a better future, there's no limit to what we can achieve." As Juno and Krell embarked on their new mission of interspecies diplomacy, their hearts were filled with hope and optimism for the future. But that hope was quickly shattered by an unexpected message from Marcus James. "Juno, Krell, I have grave news," James said, his holographic image flickering in the dimly lit room. "The Omega Force has uncovered evidence of a new threat to galactic peace, A rogue faction of denobulans, opposed to the alliance with humans, seeks to reignite the conflict between our two species. Juno and Krell exchanged worried glances, the weight of James's words hanging heavy in the air. "What do you mean, Marcus?" Juno asked, his voice tight with concern. "Who are these rogue denobulans?" James shook his head, his expression grim. "We don't have all the details yet, but what we do know is that they are determined to destroy the peace we've worked so hard to build. You must return to the denobulan homeworld immediately and investigate." Without hesitation, Juno and Krell boarded their ship and set a course for home, their minds racing with the implications of James's revelation. As they entered the denobulan atmosphere, Juno turned to Krell, his brow furrowed with worry. "Who could be behind this, Krell?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Who would want to undo all the progress we've made?" Krell shook his head, his own expression mirroring Juno's concern. "I don't know, my friend. But whoever they are, we must stop them before it's too late." As they landed, Juno and Krell were greeted by a familiar face, Zaxir, the anthropologist who had organized the symposium on human resilience. But the usual warmth in Zaxir's eyes was replaced by a deep sense of unease. "Juno, Krell, thank the stars you're here," Zaxir said, his voice hushed and urgent. "I have been secretly monitoring the activities of the rogue faction, and what I've discovered is deeply troubling." Juno leaned forward, his heart pounding in his chest. "What have you found, Zaxir?" Zaxir took a deep breath, his gaze darting around the room as if to ensure they were not being overheard. "The faction is planning to sabotage the Joint Medical Research Initiative. They believe that the alliance with humans is a threat to denobulan supremacy and purity, and they see the medical breakthrough as a symbol of human influence and corruption." Krell's eyes widened in shock. They would destroy something that could benefit countless lives just to preserve their own narrow-minded views? Zaxir nodded grimly. "I'm afraid so. The faction is led by a charismatic and ruthless denobulan named Khazrak, and he has convinced his followers that the only way to protect our species is to sever all ties with the humans and assert our dominance through force." Juno and Krell exchanged a look of determination, their resolve hardening in the face of this new threat. They knew that they could not allow Khazrak and his followers to succeed, not after all they had sacrificed and achieved. Without hesitation, Juno contacted Marcus James, his voice steady and clear. "Marcus, we need the help of the Omega Force. The rogue faction must be stopped at any cost." James's response was immediate and unwavering. "I'm sending my best soldiers, led by Captain Elena Satori. They will arrive on the denobulan homeworld as soon as possible, ready to assist in any way they can." As they waited for the Omega Force to arrive, Juno and Krell worked tirelessly with Zaxir to gather as much information as they could about Khazrak and his followers. They pored over surveillance footage, intercepted communications, and analyzed patterns of movement, searching for any clue that could help them thwart the faction's plans. When Satori and her team finally arrived, Juno and Krell were struck by the fierce determination in their eyes. These were soldiers who had faced down the horrors of war, who had lost friends and comrades in the fight for peace, and yet they remained unwavering in their commitment to justice and righteousness. As Satori and her team began their investigation, working seamlessly with Zaxir to track down the rogue faction, Juno and Krell could only watch in awe at their bravery and dedication. They saw the Omega Force soldiers working tirelessly, putting their own lives on the line to protect the fragile peace between their two species. In a moment of quiet reflection, Krell turned to Juno, his voice filled with a newfound respect for the humans they had once feared. "You know, I never thought I would say this, but I am truly grateful for the Omega Force. These humans, they are not just warriors, but guardians of peace and justice. They are willing to risk everything to protect what we have built together." Juno nodded in agreement, his own heart swelling with pride and admiration. "Yes, the Omega Force is a testament to the incredible spirit of humanity. They have suffered so much, and yet they continue to fight for what is right, not just for themselves, but for all of us. We are lucky to have them as our allies and friends. As the investigation reached a fever pitch, Juno and Krell could feel the tension in the air, the sense that everything they had worked for hung in the balance. They watched as Satori and her team prepared for the final confrontation with Khazrak and his followers, knowing that the fate of the Alliance, and perhaps the entire galaxy, rested on the outcome of this battle. But even in the face of such uncertainty, Juno and Krell remained steadfast in their belief in the power of unity and compassion. They knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, side by side with their human allies, united in their determination to build a better future for all. As the final confrontation with Khazrak and his rogue faction reached its climax, Captain Elena Satori and her team fought with unwavering determination. In a fierce exchange of fire, Satori saw one of Khazrak's followers take aim at her second-in-command, Lieutenant Mikhail Volkov. Without hesitation, she threw herself into the line of fire, shielding Volkov from the deadly blast. The battle raged on, but Satori lay motionless on the ground, her life slipping away with each passing moment. Her team, fueled by a mixture of grief and anger, redoubled their efforts and finally succeeded in neutralizing the threat posed by Khazrak and his followers. As the dust settled, Volkov rushed to Satori's side, cradling her in his arms. "Captain, stay with me," he pleaded, his voice cracking with emotion. "We need you." Satori, her breathing shallow and labored, managed a weak smile. "You've got this, Mikhail," she whispered. "You all do. Just promise me one thing." "Anything, Captain," Volkov replied, tears streaming down his face. "Don't let this be for nothing. Keep fighting for the peace we've worked so hard to achieve. Don't let our sacrifices be in vain." Volkov, his heart heavy with grief, nodded solemnly. "I promise, Captain. We won't let you down." Word of Satori's sacrifice spread quickly, reaching Juno and Krell on the Denobulan homeworld. The two diplomats, their hearts filled with sorrow, rushed to the medical facility where Satori had been taken. They found her surrounded by her loyal teammates, each one struggling to come to terms with the loss of their beloved leader. Satori, her life fading fast, beckoned Juno and Krell to her bedside. "Juno, Krell," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I need you to promise me something." Juno, his voice thick with emotion, leaned in closer. "Anything, Elena. Just name it." "Don't let this be in vain," Satori said, her eyes filled with a fierce determination. "Promise me that you will keep fighting for what we have built, for the peace we have achieved. Promise me that you will not let the sacrifices of the Omega Force be forgotten." Krell, his own eyes brimming with tears, took Satori's hand in his own. "We promise, Elena. Your legacy and the legacy of the Omega Force will live on through us. We will not rest until the galaxy knows true peace." Satori, her strength fading, managed one last smile. "Thank you," she whispered, knowing that it makes it all worth it. With those final words, Captain Elena Satori, hero of the Omega Force and champion of peace, drew her last breath. Her teammates, their hearts shattered, gathered around her, united in their grief and their determination to carry on her mission. As Juno and Krell left the medical facility, they were met by Marcus James, his face etched with sorrow. The leader of the Omega Force, usually so strong and composed, seemed to have aged a decade in the span of a few hours. "Juno, Krell," he said, his voice heavy with emotion, "I came as soon as I heard. Elena, she was one of the best of us. Her loss, it's a blow to us all." Krell, his own voice trembling, placed a hand on James's shoulder. "Marcus, we grieve with you. Elena's sacrifice, it will not be forgotten. She gave her life for the cause of peace, for the alliance between our peoples." James nodded, his eyes filled with a mixture of pride and pain. "She did, but she was not the first, and I fear she will not be the last." He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the words he knew he had to say. "Juno, Krell, there's something you need to know about the Omega Force, something that we've kept hidden from the galaxy, even from our closest allies." Juno, his curiosity piqued, leaned in closer. "What is it, Marcus?" James, his voice low and solemn, began to speak. "In the years since the Omega Force was revived, we've lost many of our own, brave men and women who gave their lives in the service of peace and justice, often without recognition or fanfare." He paused, his eyes distant with memory. There was Lieutenant Zara Mikhailova, who single-handedly held off a platoon of Zorgan raiders to allow a colony of refugees to escape, and Sergeant Takeshi Sato, who sacrificed himself to destroy a cache of illegal weapons that would have fueled a dozen conflicts across the galaxy. Krell, his voice thick with emotion, shook his head in disbelief. "Marcus, we had no idea. The sacrifices your people have made, the burdens you have borne." James smiled sadly. "We bear them gladly, Krell, because we know that what we fight for, what we die for, is worth it. The dream of a galaxy at peace, where all sentient beings can live in harmony, that's what drives us. That's what gives our sacrifices meaning." Krell, his eyes filled with a newfound respect and admiration for the Omega Force, spoke from the heart. "Your people, they are the true heroes of this story. They have shown us the meaning of courage, of selflessness, of sacrifice. We will never forget what they have done for us, for the galaxy." James, nodding solemnly, placed a hand on Krell's shoulder. "And we will never forget the friendship and trust that we have built with the Denobulans, with you. The Omega Force may have been revived to fight, but in the end, it was our shared humanity that truly saved us all." As Juno and Krell left the medical facility, their hearts heavy with the weight of Satori's sacrifice and the revelations of the Omega Force's hidden history, they knew that their mission had taken on a new meaning. They were no longer just diplomats, seeking to forge peace between two species. They were the guardians of a legacy, the keepers of a sacred trust. They knew that the road ahead would not be easy, that there would always be those who sought to divide and destroy. But they also knew that as long as there were those like the Omega Force, like Satori, who were willing to fight and die for what was right, there was hope. Hope for a better future, a brighter tomorrow. And so, as they returned to their duties, Juno and Krell carried with them a renewed sense of purpose, a determination to honor the sacrifices of their human allies and to build a galaxy where all could live in peace and understanding. They knew that the journey would be long and the battles many, but they also knew that, together, they would prevail. For the sake of the fallen, for the sake of the future, they would not rest until their mission was complete.
If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, "I liked the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.